On today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth, we have got some interesting articles that we want to share with our listeners. We're going to be talking about sequence of return risk, how that gets ignored by so many, how we can find ourselves in a comfort zone that may hinder our investment and our retirement to a big degree. We're going to talk about why so many are putting their retirement on hold now, and then we'll be dealing with some questions. So look forward to this episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management. Check them out online. Great resource website, efmnw.com. All letters, efmnw.com. Easy to remember. Again, you can find links to the TV show, radio shows in podcast form. Again, a lot of information for you, so make sure you check that out. That's efmnw.com. 42 years combined experience between these two, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Well, gentlemen, welcome in. And first and foremost, man, how was your week?
It's been good. Yeah, we've had a great week. It's been nice. There was a couple of rainy days, but collectively it's been pretty good. I'll just say one name, and I think everybody in Seattle will know who I'm talking about, Arozarena. So we needed the bat. We're really excited about that. So no.
Well, you should be. You're not sitting on your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, your front office.
The White Sox, baby.
Yeah, your front office concerned. I mean, I want to say one of the last baseball conversations we had, I basically said, guys, what are you complaining about? You're 2 games up. Yeah, but we were 11 games up 3 weeks ago. I was like, okay. Right. Excuse me.
That doesn't sound like us. We would never say anything like that.
Yeah. But anyway, I find it very interesting, the business side of sports. And I tell you, if something's not working or if something goes south, having a front office that has the you-know-whats to go ahead and make some moves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to make some moves. That's got to really energize the fan base. So I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah. And the team too, really, right? I think that's the big thing, right? It gets us excited, but just to see the team excited, to feel like, management does care, ownership does care, that kind of thing, and they want the team to succeed, despite, we won't get into great detail here, but despite some of the off-color comments that was made by ownership management last year. So, that being said, it's nice to see them making some moves, and we'll see where it all ends up.
And it did affect us big time, Morgan, because they a guy coming in of this stature, they went from scoring like 1 run in 5 straight games to they burst out with a 10 spot the next game, and we're like, where has that been? So yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's changed. The fan base has definitely got a little bit of electricity going right now for sure.
Yeah, and as you get closer to playoff time, and if you guys are in the hunt, that's what it's about. That's what being a fan is. It's just great because you can follow it, and I know it's a day-to-day thing with Seattle. So we will see how they do down the stretch. Well, guys, I love what we're doing on the show. You guys have picked out a number of things that just kind of caught your eye. We're going to start with some articles. Sequence of returns can't be ignored. Where'd you find this? Why'd you go, you know what, we're going to talk about this week?
Yeah, in fact, Casey, when we're teaching out at our community colleges, we do a really interesting class on retirement, and one of the segments is sequence of return risk, because what we're finding, so many of the students, the people that listen to radio, have so many questions. It's like, what is sequence of return risk? They don't even know what it is. And if it gets ignored, it could be one of the most devastating things that can happen to retirement dollars. All it's simply meaning is when we begin to draw down, if we're just letting our accounts grow, it doesn't really matter the sequence of the returns each year. Year in and out, if we inverted them, changed them, the return will be the same each and every 5-year period or whatever time we're looking back.
The average, right?
Yeah, the average
over that time frame. Yeah.
And then, but if you start taking money out, which is the concern, once we need to start drawing income, if the returns are negative early on in the retirement cycle, especially the first 2, 3, 4 years, it can be devastating to how much faster your money will be exhausted and you're going to have zero left. So sequence of return risk is ginormous.
So yeah, it really is. I think the thing that really gets people is that retirement is so different, right? Which we talk about all the time. But as you're building and saving for retirement, that sequence really doesn't matter because you're contributing into your accounts. And so the effect that has is non-existent, really, right? It's when you start to withdraw. That's the issue. When you start to take money out of your accounts and then you have negative returns on top of that, not only have you now taken, let's say you got $1 million account, you take $40,000 out to live your life with for the year, and then you lose 35%. Let's say 39%, because that's the average bear market, right? If we go back to 1929, the average bear market's almost 40% loss. So if you take out 40,000 and then you lose 40% of the value of your account, I mean, you've lost almost 50% of your $1 million. And so the problem with that is now, what does it take to get back the money that you lost, right? And the reality is that these percentages are not one-to-one like we think of in our minds, right? They're unfair. That's the truth. So if we lose 40%, it takes over, it's almost 70% return, I think it is, to get back the 40% that you lost, right? So it takes a lot to make up for that. So if you lose 40% in 1 year, or let's say over the course of 2 years, how long is it going to take you to get back what you lost, especially when you factor in that you're now taking out $40,000 the next year, right? So even if you did have a 30% gain, you take out $40,000, well, you're going the wrong way, right? That's not working out.
Yeah.
And so the sequence that we experience these returns, it has a drastic impact on your retirement. And if you have negative returns, as Mark said, if you have negative returns early on in retirement, that is very much the defining factor between a successful retirement and a failure at retirement.
Why do you think, guys, why do you think it's missed so often? I mean, are we so focused on an exact target rate that we want, that we need, and it just kind of goes over our head? We have a number in our mind, and all of a sudden we just miss the whole sequence.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. In fact, we truly believe Wall Street doesn't do a very good job of addressing this risk.
Yep.
And that's one of the big problems. They're so focused on return. And this part of it, if it gets missed, I think this article has a great illustration story about Cinderella, which maybe we can talk about in a minute, about the two different options. And I think it's worth sharing this because this really drives home the fact of what can happen and how quickly it can happen if sequence of return hits us in the wrong way at the wrong time.
Yep.
Okay, listen, an opportunity to talk about your own situation, your own sequence of returns, your own issues as you move towards retirement. We're all concerned about our money. Now, the opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management is ongoing during the course of this show, and all you've got to do is call this number, 866-668-3625. Grab one of the complimentary appointments we have. Again, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Again, open appointments right now, complimentary. Leave the checkbook at home, 866-668-3625. All right, now it's time. Okay, you going to throw something in there?
Yeah, let me just before we get to that, to the Cinderella story.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Cinderella. So I can't help it just plays in my mind when you say Cinderella, right? So, I want to go back to what you said, Morgan. That idea that people are kind of focused on the wrong thing. I think the reality is that a lot of that has to do with Wall Street, as Mark mentioned.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it also has to do with poor education when it comes to finance, right?
I like
That's
that,
why we teach at the colleges. That's why we have this radio show. That's why we do television, all those things. Because people are ill-informed when it comes to investing, and they almost feel embarrassed to ask the question, right? Because it's like, well, I'm 55, I'm 60 years old. I should know the answer to this already,
Right.
but I don't.
Right.
And our school system does a bad job of educating in that regard. So there's a lot of things there that are missing. And that's why we talk about this, because we're passionate, as you can tell. And it's important to make sure that you're informed and feel comfortable asking questions when you don't feel informed.
In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, Casey, because we have a client recently. She didn't call us for almost
Over a year. Yeah.
And then we said, but why? And she admitted that she felt embarrassed that she thought she hadn't saved enough money, and she had saved $4 million.
Right. So she'd been listening to the show for a year, right? For a whole year. And we asked her, how come you decided to call in after a year? And she's like, well, I finally kind of got over the embarrassment of feeling like I hadn't saved enough money.
Yeah.
And, Mark and I are looking at each other going, wow,
are you serious?
how much did you think you need to save, right? You know what I mean? So, and of course it depends on your individual circumstance, but, we don't want people to feel that way. We don't want people to be intimidated. We want people to be comfortable, right?
Sure.
And it's an appropriate place to ask questions. That's what we're here for.
And I think you hit on something that a lot of people will be listening to and admit to. They are embarrassed. They're very prideful. They don't want to appear to have missed the boat.
Yeah.
And so they just put it off and put it off and put it off. It's okay. You can come in and talk about your money. Yeah. It is yours, and it is your retirement. So the opportunity to grab one of these appointments and have this kind of conversation and do it with fiduciaries with no cost, leave the checkbook at home. It's right now. So, gentlemen, we've got the appointments. What's going to happen for these callers? Mark, you've got something for us.
Yeah, if you've been listening and we talked about sequence of return, and maybe you don't understand what that is, or maybe you're really concerned about what tax rates are going to do and how that's going to affect your plan. What about, do you have guaranteed sources of income? The point is, let our team of certified financial planners put together a plan for you based on your situation. We'll talk about maybe some long-term care, taxes, sequence of return, and your investments in general. How are they going to be used to create guaranteed income? So please pick up the phone, give us a call, let us just have a conversation.
Again, appointments are complimentary. Leave the checkbook at home. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number 866-668-3625. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, it's time. It's story time. Mark's going to put his hat on, and we're going to tell you the story about Cinderella. Yeah, it's a new version. It's coming up next. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. 42 years combined experience between these two in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. They have a kick-in website, EFMNW.com. All letters, EFMNW.com. Links to the TV show, radio shows, and podcast form. Great information there. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate, and each and every week here on Elevate Your Wealth, it's always retirement planning, the importance of having it. And again, just whatever's happening in this business, and it is a business, we're going to bring you the latest information. So we're going over some articles. We started off, and again, talking about sequence risk. And it's a big, big deal. A lot of people get focused on the wrong thing, and they miss out on this, so don't. And we have an example, and we kind of jokingly said it's story time with Mark, because it is. And we're going Cinderella style. So you've got an example for us using this fairy tale.
Yeah, this is an interesting way to look at this. So you've got Cinderella and her two wicked stepsisters, right? Now they're going to be given two choices. Dad is possibly going to leave them through a trust, $1 million each. And what they have to do is pick one of two options. So let me explain the two options, and I'm going to let Casey finish the story. So the first option is they could choose a negative 8% return for the first 10 years. So you lose 8% every year for 10 years in a row, but then you get a positive 40% rate for the next 20 years. So if you did the math, that's going to work out to about a 22% average rate of return. And if you did the math on it, on $1 million, that return is going to grow that million to $363 million. That's a nice bucket, right? But now here's option two. The other option is you're going to choose a 10% return for the first 15 years of retirement, and then you get 0% over the next 15. So 10% first 10 years, and then 15% going forward after that. That's going to yield a much more modest return of only 4.7%, and the $1 million would grow to slightly over $4.1 million over 30 years. So those are your two options. plus 10% first 15, 0 the next 15, or you lose 8 for the first 10 years, but then you get a positive 40% return for the next 20. Which option did the wicked stepsisters choose, and which one did Cinderella take? Casey's going to finish the story.
So the stepsisters took the first option, right? So they took negative 8% for the first 10 years, then a 40% rate of return for 20 years. So on average, right, that's a 22% average annual rate of return. Who would turn that down, right? Now, to everyone's surprise, what does Cinderella pick? She picks a 10% for the first 15 years, and then a 0% return for the next 15, which, as Mark mentioned, comes out to an average 4.7. So if we look at average rate of return, the stepsisters made the right choice, right? No questions asked. I mean, that's simple math, easy. Here's where the problem comes in. They're going to start taking money out of these accounts, and that is the point that we're trying to make here. If you start taking $40,000 out in each of these scenarios, Cinderella and the stepsisters, that's where this becomes an issue. And increasing for inflation over time. So the stepsisters ran out of money by their 19th year of retirement, okay? So they had these negative returns and these massive positive returns, but they were taking out $40,000 each year. Cinderella had $2.5 million in her 19th year, and at age 95 still had $1.8 million, despite receiving a 0% return for the last 15 years. So the key is this. The sequence of this is very important, and things totally change when you're taking money out, right? If you were not going to take money out and you could just let that money grow for the next 30, 40 years, the stepsisters made the right decision, right? Because they didn't need the money out of it. Over time, that was going to equal out to much, much more income or much more account value. But when you need income from your accounts, you need money in your pocket for you to go spend and live your life, that is what changes this scenario. And in that circumstance, Cinderella made the right choice, right? Yeah. So that's the key, right? You've got to figure out what the purpose is. What are you trying to do? What are your goals? And don't let the media control you in terms of average rate of return. That everything always comes back to average rate of return. Yeah. It doesn't mean as much when you have the need for income. That's what totally changes the scenario.
Because the best part about this story is when the wicked stepsisters ran out of money, who did they move in with? They moved in with Cinderella. And now guess who's doing the chores?
Mark.
See, so that's the best part of this story, right? It really matters. And that was with only a 4% drawdown rate. 40,000 on $1 million, right? 4%. So again, there are many that believe that's even too high of a drawdown rate. It should be closer to 2 if you want your money to last. So again, it's the principle that I want our listeners to understand, right? Because it matters.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if this is true, but apparently, maybe, possibly it could happen. If you grab one of these appointments, there'll be some role playing in the office. They'll do the Cinderella story for you right there. No, I kid, of course. We are here to help you. We've got appointments. They are complimentary. They're available right now. All you got to do is call 866-668-3625. No role playing. 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number now, grab one of these appointments, and come in and talk about your situation. 866-668-3625. All right, shifting gears, guys. You grabbed this one and sent it to me. Comfort zones can put investors on disastrous paths. We all have comfort zones in many phases of life, but when it comes to money, when it comes to retirement planning, what are some comfort zones, and why should we be careful here?
You have to be, you got to be really cautious here, right? Because that comfort zone was likely created 10, 15, 20 years ago, and the investing world is very different, right? The world is different, the economy is different, the markets are different. And so I say this a lot, what made you successful in the past is not necessarily what will make you successful moving forward. We want to be keeping up with the changes to some extent. That is not us saying we need to always be on the cutting edge of investments and always looking for this new exciting opportunity. There is a lot of value in quote unquote boring investments sometimes, right? There's security in some of those things. And so we see the value from both sides, but there's something in particular that really stands out to me. So the idea that investing only in well-known companies or industries, that is the go-to move for investments. for maybe a portion of your investments, there's value there, right? But we need to have diversification beyond that. The other idea is avoiding unfamiliar investment opportunities or relying on traditional financial products rather than exploring innovative options. So there's something real specific that comes to mind when I read these three. What were you going to say, Morgan?
I was just going to say, how important is it for a potential client, a current client, to come in and have these conversations with you and just be open-minded? Because we do get set in our ways. We do have our comfort zones.
Yeah. Yep. You're right. You have to be willing to have that conversation. You have to have an open mind. And on us as advisors, it's on our shoulders to challenge the thinking that you might have, right? The seat that we sit in is very important in that regard, because if you just come in and tell us what you want and we do it, we're really not advisors, right? We're order takers. And that's not good for anybody, right? We do need to challenge those that come in and challenge them to think differently and have an open mind. But back to those kind of three pieces, there's something very particular that comes to mind. There's a couple of things, but one of them is cryptocurrency, right? Yeah. If you rewind 10 years ago, I mean, the overarching theme was like, this isn't going to last. It's not going to be around. It's fake. It doesn't mean anything.
It's a fad.
Yeah, it's a fad, right? It's all going to disappear, right? Now you've got ETFs for Ethereum and Bitcoin, and it's one of the largest drivers for some of the growth that's happened recently, and it's got massive growth, right? Now, does that mean that we're recommending it for everybody's portfolio? Absolutely not, right? But there is potentially value there, and so it's about keeping an open mind and having that conversation.
It's so important. Again, talking about your own situation, and we've said this many times on the show, your situation is completely unique to you. And if you're retiring as a couple, unique to that couple, make sure you have a customized plan. Now, the opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, meet with Mark, Casey, and their team is right now. Casey, we've got appointments available. What's going to happen if they can grab one?
Well, this is your opportunity to get a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. With that, we're going to talk about sequence of return risk with you in your specific circumstance, talk about averages and how that applies in your circumstance, and what can be done to put you on the winning side of that story that we talked about between Cinderella and the wicked stepsisters. And we'll talk, too, about the investments that you've had in the past, the risks that you're currently taking, how taxes are going to affect your retirement. There's so many parts and pieces to it. We'll have that conversation specifically tailored to you. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Call us now.
Here's the phone number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you've saved, again, $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. And this is an opportunity really just to kind of sit down and see where you are. You're going to walk out with a written financial plan. 866-668-3625, and it's complimentary. You leave the checkbook at home. 866-668-3625. We've got more Elevate Your Wealth when we return on the other side of the break. We are back on Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in good old Seattle. EFMNW.com is their website. All letters, easy to remember, EFMNW.com. Links to the TV show, Elevate Your Wealth, our radio shows in podcast form. Great information there. If you've got any questions, obviously, contact information. And if there's anything coming up, seminars, classes, you can find that at the website, EFMNW.com. And both Mark and Casey, they have the experience, 42 years combined. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Get to go back and forth with the fellas and sometimes referee. We are in the comfort zone conversation, and we're all guilty of having our comfort zones. My comfort zone on the golf course is middle of the fairway, right on the green, hopefully one putt, but sometimes two putt. No, I kid, of course. I have a lot of fun playing golf, but it's, golf course is my comfort zone.
Yeah,
when it comes to when it comes to retirement planning, we get stuck in a rut sometimes, and we have our comfort zones, and sometimes that can hurt us.
Yeah. In fact, we form biases, right? We just do. And those biases, as we're going to talk about here, can affect things in a negative way. If you've lost money in the market, then we tend to go, that can never happen to me again, so we get ultra conservative, right? Which could lead to possibly missing out on emerging markets or different new technology that may be coming out, green investments, whatever it is. We might be too scared to jump into that water, right? But I think one of the things we all need to focus on is how the long-term consequences of being stuck in that old bias is going to affect us. And there's about 4 different ways. We're going to have lower returns on average if we do that. That's going to affect, the portfolio. What about inflation? Inflation is running rampant right now. So if you're stuck in, I can't lose any money and I'm keeping everything safe, we've got a lot of Boeing clients, and they put money, out of their VIP plan into their standard stable fund, and they got crushed by inflation. I had one client that if he'd done anything at all, he would have probably 2.5 to 3 times had more money had he not gone totally conservative in 2008, right? But so you're going to have inflation. What about compounding that you missed? Those dollars that could have built up over a 10, 15-year period of time. That
huge.
Goes away. That's huge. As Casey mentioned. And then failure to meet your goals, because now I can't retire with the income that I so wanted because I got so ultra conservative. So helping our clients figure out why they feel this way and what that bias is, and then help them to maybe just get over that hurdle a little bit to be willing to put their toes in the water again, can be a real game changer, and it can have such a positive effect on our clients that are so worried about losing money.
And it's about being balanced too, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we have these conversations, we talk about different investments. Sometimes it gets lost in translation. We're not talking about putting 90% or 100% of your investments in emerging markets or somewhere that is unfamiliar and uncomfortable and all those kinds of things. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about looking at different opportunities and biting off a small portion that could maybe go there that would benefit the overall plan, right? That's really the key. So, and that's where the plan comes in, right? Is that plan that shows us where our income is going to come from, how taxes are going to affect us, what inflation is going to do, all those things. Once we see the whole picture, it's easier to make some of those quote-unquote alternative investments, or to look at things different than maybe how you've done them in the past. And so, again, that's where that plan comes in, and it's so important. To go back to your illustration of the golf course, though, Morgan, maybe that's why I spend so much time in the woods, because that's where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. It's funny that we're talking about golf. So many of these things can affect us in negative ways, right? But I like what it says here. It says, in this fast-paced world of investments, staying flexible and adapting to new market conditions is essential. Not maybe we should do, it's essential, because it is constantly changing. The financial world, we see it, driven by technological advances. What about economic shifts, global events? It's going to help us to seize new opportunities if we're willing to look at them.
Well,
right?
and
That's the other thing.
I was just going to say, getting stuck in a rut or our comfort zones, we don't do this every day. The average Joe, the person out there, and so we do tend to panic when things go the wrong way. Yeah. Now, if you're working with someone, a fiduciary firm, and you have communication lines open and you can ask questions, there's less likely there's going to be that panic mode. Hey, you've got somebody you can call and talk to. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people out there, guys, feel like they're alone in this, and they're really worried about it.
Yeah, they're not. We have to help clients get them off the ledge, right? We got to walk them back a little bit, because all I know is if you're adaptable, if you're willing to be a little adaptable, then you're going to be able to help mitigate risk, because as we see things coming, we can make adjustments. But you got to be working with someone that might be able to help you to do that. But if you can mitigate those risks, even though you may be sticking your toes in the water with some investments that you would have never have looked at, that can be a game changer in how your retirement is going to turn out. So, and by doing that, it's going to lead to long-term success. We love short-term success, but it's really, we want long-term success to really be the ultimate goal in retirement planning.
Yeah, it is required. What were you going to say, Morgan?
Oh no, keep going.
Did I cut
Keep
you off?
going. I
Okay,
love it.
yeah. No, I think that's important, right? That long-term success, because that's success overall, right? And when it comes to investments and retirement planning, a lot of people kind of treat it like set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Like the old George Foreman grill, right? You set it and forget it. That doesn't work, right? Things change. The world is different, like I said. And so your plan has to change. You've got to make adjustments to how you're investing and what you're doing. And not only that, but your life changes, right? Even let's say the investing world has remained the same. Your goals in life have changed, right? From when you were 35 to when you were 60, 65, getting ready to retire. Your life is different. Maybe it used to be focused on putting the kids through college and just making the bills. But now you got to figure out a way to make sure that the money that you've got lasts you for the next 30 years of your life, right? So your life is different. The world is different. You've got to make sure your plan fits you instead of trying to force yourself into meeting what your plan already is.
And so many of us, it's almost like we're afraid to give up the reins, so to speak, and work with a professional. But also the other side of that too is we've kind of lost track, or maybe we're not quite up to date on what's going on, so we're almost embarrassed that we don't have that knowledge. Folks, it's okay. You can work with professionals that do this on a daily basis. The opportunity to work with these professionals is ongoing during the course of this show. Elevated Financial Management has opened up spots for our radio listeners exclusive to you. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. And to grab an appointment, again, you leave the checkbook at home and you're going to walk out with a financial plan. 866 is the number to call, 866-668-3625. Again, we have a limited number of appointments, but they are complimentary. Grab one right now, 866-668-3625. So we're moving from comfort zones, gentlemen, to retirement plans on hold. We're going to talk about a survey that reveals economic concerns of Americans that are, guess what, 50 and older. I mean, I can see in the headline why you grabbed this one, because this is when it's crunch time for planning.
Yeah. In fact, we were just talking about this too. We thought this might be what we'd like to do is share a quick story of a client that we would like to just share a few things about what happened in the plan that we put together for this client.
Yeah, so I think of her circumstance, and it's kind of unique, but not unheard of. She'd done a decent job saving for retirement. She works at a local company here down in the Fife area. And she'd done a pretty good job saving for retirement. Her dad had always managed his own investments and had done really well. Was very intelligent man, well-versed in the investing world and picking stocks and things of that nature. He passed away and left her a pretty sizable chunk of money, and her mom did as well. And so now her life is very different. She's now thinking of moving up her retirement, right? Whereas before she was kind of thinking with this survey, like you mentioned, Morgan, about delaying retirement because of inflation and things like that. But now she's kind of in this weird spot where she's got a big chunk of money, but she doesn't know what to do with it, right? And that's really where we come in to help her out. She came to one of our classes down at Green River. And was enjoyed what we had talked about, came in to have a conversation with us, and we helped her put together a plan. There's a lot of things that come up, right, in that circumstance. When you inherit those funds, the way it's inherited is important. The types of accounts that you've inherited, because taxes do have an impact on that. If you inherited an IRA, you now have to have the money out in 10 years, right? You can't stretch that over your lifetime. So if you inherit $1 million IRA, that means you got to take $1 million out in the next 10 years and pay taxes on that money, right? So there's a lot that comes into this. And like I said, it's not something unheard of. It's not something that we don't deal with here in the office, but just kind of an interesting story. And to see, I'm excited for her. She has a countdown timer on her phone, right, Mark?
She does.
She's got
too.
a countdown timer of when she gets to retire. So she
Like a doomsday clock.
Yeah,
but it's
exactly, right?
retirement. Yeah.
She knows the days, the weeks, the months, the hours, the
We
minutes. I
couldn't
mean,
believe
it's
it.
like, it's,
Yeah.
she pulls it out and she's like, okay, here, she's showing it to us,
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. She's so excited to retire. And it's a privilege and an honor for us to be a part of that story. But that's her success, right? And it's something great that her parents were able to help her achieve, which we think is really cool.
Well, I mean, it's a perfect example of you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And here's a client now that took the opportunity to meet with you, come to a class, and then ask questions. And that's the most important thing. I mean, you really need to be at a comfort level with your advisor or advisory team where these conversations can happen. And I think a lot of people, they don't have that, but they can certainly get it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does have to be a two-way street, right? You should be able to ask questions, and your advisor should be able to do the same, right? And just like we talked about, even challenge you to some extent to think about things differently. This particular client that I'm thinking of, or that we were just discussing, she got thrown into kind of a weird spot because now she's got a big chunk of funds, but she doesn't really know what to do with it. That's not her realm of expertise, and she kind of felt uncomfortable, right? And that's what pushed her to reach out, which we're happy that she did. So for anybody out there that's feeling the same way, if you feel like you don't know what to do, you feel like you don't understand your investments, that's exactly what our complimentary consultation will be about. We'll talk with you about the investments that you got, how we can structure things differently. It's a great time for you to ask questions, for us to ask you questions and help you learn about new ways that you might be able to invest. So again, it's a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. It's completely complimentary. It's no pressure. We're happy to chat.
All right, here's the phone number. Grab an appointment now. 866-668-3625. That number again, 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number now. Grab an appointment, 866-668-3625. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, Mark and Casey will handle some retirement scenarios. Don't go anywhere. Elevate Your Wealth, hosted by Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle. 42 years combined experience. They are at Elevated Financial Management. They have a wonderful resource website. Check it out at any time, efmnw.com. All letters, easy to remember, efmnw.com. TV show links are there for you. Elevate Your Wealth, a la the TV, and also our radio show and podcast forum available for you at the website efmnw.com. Both Mark and Casey are certified financial fiduciaries, and they lead their team, and it's all about getting their clients ready for retirement. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, and these appointments we make available through the radio show are cost-free. You leave the checkbook at home. We'll tell you about those as we move through the program. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Before we get to our Q&A, we want to kind of continue that discussion about retirement plans on hold. And the survey is telling us that people are 50 plus, and there are reasons why they're not planning. So, guys, take it away.
Yeah, this is something that we're seeing a lot right now, that high inflation, dwindling money, making wrong investment decisions is really causing some concern, and especially with the Gen Xers. They don't have near saved up what they know they should have. So what we're seeing in the office, though, is a lot of clients are doing what we call a hybrid retirement. They're finding out something that they love doing, or the work part-time. I've talked about this on shows before. I love Home Depot, so if I needed to go look for a job, which I don't, but if I did, I could hang out at Home Depot and help people.
I've been meaning to tell you, Mark.
I was going to say, Mark, okay. I'm a big fan, too. I mean, we're dudes. I mean, going to a hardware store, going to a massive hardware store, it's like a playground. So
Candy store.
Okay, let's just say this, in a hypothetical. Let's say, you're bored in retirement, and you do this. What department would you want to work in?
Mark wants flowers. That's his go-to move.
No, I'm not going.
Hey,
actually, I do the gardening out front of my house, so I will say that. Of course, that's why my grass is dead right now.
That's why I said flowers.
Yeah, but I do like that. But for me, I love the tool department.
Oh yeah.
That's a candy store right there. So tools, but I can also help closet organizers. I'm really good on that stuff. Plumbing is so for me. I don't really like that. I have to do it, but I don't like it. Electrical would be okay. I need to learn a lot more. But anyway, I just love so many departments at Home Depot.
I could see, Mark. Did you know that the rivet guns you can actually make them sing?
And I'm a caulking machine too. I do a lot of caulking, so I can do that.
All
too,
right,
baby.
so okay, now let's go a little bit younger. Casey, years out from now, and you're in retirement, and you decide, you know what, I want to go back, maybe just do a little part-time gig. What area would you go in? And I'm assuming cars.
Yeah, it's got to be cars, right? Yeah, I'm a car guy, right? That's just through and through. And now, to be fair, that also means that I love tools, right? Because car guys, it just goes hand in hand, right? So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you see his toolbox,
Yeah.
you'd think he was a master mechanic. Actually,
I've got the tool collection to make you think I am, anyways. So
He is.
It is, yeah. It's cars, it's motorcycles. That's my go-to. I work at Home Depot. I'd probably be in like the tool or the lawn department, right? I love being outside. I love working in the yard, that kind of thing. So. But I mean, the truth of it is those hybrid retirements, like Mark said, right? That's a lot of people. The other thing that comes to mind too when we talk about hybrid retirement is the amount of people that we show them that they can retire, right? We actually build a plan for them. We show them, hey, you can
that's
retire.
That's got to be a fun appointment. That's got to be a
it's
fun
great.
sit down.
It's
Absolutely.
exciting, yeah. It's very rewarding for us, right?
Sure.
But I think this is so interesting. Just the psychology behind this. We show them, hey, you can retire, and then immediately they go, well, let me rewind. The first time they came in to talk to us, it was like, I need to retire next week. I'm done with my job. I'm fed up with my boss. I'm tired of it. I got to get out, right? So we show them, here you go. You can do it. We'll structure the investments this way. Here's the whole plan, the whole
Here's your
deal.
parachute, jump out.
Yep, this is it, right? And then they go, well, I could maybe work another year or two, right? And suddenly, when it's their choice to go to work, it's not so bad, right?
Yep.
It's only when you feel like you have no option, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of what we do is we give people a license to spend their money. We give them the option to go live their life. But there's a lot of people that choose to work because of the intellectual challenge that they
That's a lot
receive,
of it.
right?
Yeah.
Their social network is there,
That's
those kinds of
huge.
things. So, I think it's important that whatever it is that you decide to do, that's okay. But it's about having flexibility and options. So it's just an important thought. But Morgan, so let's say you retire, okay, and now you want a little part-time job. What are you doing? You can't work at the golf course, man. You can't just go
come
play
on.
golf all day.
I was going to say, Mark knows where I'm going.
All right, you can work at the golf course. You can
No,
drive
I
the
mean,
cart.
I love golf. I love.
I would do that too. That'd
I
be
love
good.
swimming. I could run an aquatic center. I mean, I
cool.
do things like that. And again, it's about. I love what you guys said. It's about being engaged. I mean, we get so fixated on walking away from our job, and it's like your clients that you used as the example. They're like, when they kind of find out they can retire, then it's like, well, I kind of like what I do. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to go to work, but now I can, and I can pad my retirement accounts, and I can extend my working life, which is going to, in the end, extend what you have in retirement.
Right. And our happiest clients are ones that retire to something, right?
Yeah.
You retire to this plan that you have, right? And whatever that plan is, it can be individual. You don't necessarily have to retire to a part-time job.
Sure.
You can retire to traveling and spending that time. That's great, right?
Yeah.
But just to retire and just kind of sit around, that's really, that doesn't bring happiness.
It doesn't work. We have a client that we had him start to think and tell us what did he want his retirement to look like. And he was almost like in complete bewilderment because
Hadn't
he didn't
really
have
thought
the
about
plan.
it.
Yeah, not at all.
Right.
And then he realized his whole social being was to work. He didn't have many friends, on the outside. And so if he knew if that went away, it was going to be an issue. And we talked about that because a lot of people, the money part's important, but so is figuring out what you want to do, where you want to do it. Mm-hmm. That's all part of true retirement planning.
Well, and having the whole package, the total package.
Yep.
Not just the money side of it, but what are you going to do, and how's that going to impact your emotions as you move into retirement? So it's so important. Again, opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, have these types of conversations about your situation is right now. 866-668-3625. Again, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you, and you're going to walk out with a written financial plan, kind of see where you are. Call the number now. Secure one of these appointments, 866-668-3625. All right, I got two scenarios. Casey, I'm going to give you scenario number one. Obviously, Mark, you can jump in. Mark, you're going to get our last one. You guys can tag team these. Casey, first one up. I have a meeting scheduled next week to meet with an advisor. Wanted to see, again, is it okay in this business, this industry, to bring my 18-year-old son who is heading off to college in a few months, I think this is an interesting scenario. Do you get a lot of parents that bring in their aging kids, the kids that are getting into adulthood?
It does happen. It's definitely the exception, not the rule.
Rare.
Yeah. I will say that we're more than happy for you to bring whoever you like, right? That doesn't bother us at all. But I will give a caveat to that. Are you truly ready to bring your 18-year-old into that conversation, right? So are you ready to divulge all of your financial information with your 18-year-old in the room? And for most people, the answer is no, right? Some families are very open, and that might be okay. But it is a sensitive conversation, right? We know that, right? And that's why we work really hard to make this a very comfortable and no pressure setting, that kind of thing. But to do that with your child in the room can be a little different. So a lot of times what we'll encourage is to get the plan put in place, right? We get those pieces figured out. Then we'll bring in the kids to let them know what the plan is, right? And that's a good time for them to ask questions and potentially for us to talk about their situation a little bit and their finances and how all of that might affect them in the future. But whatever anybody would like to do is okay with us, right? If you want to bring your adult children with you or whoever that is, we're happy to have that conversation.
The harsh reality of this is that these children, even if they're going off to college, they should have been getting some of this help in high school.
Yeah.
And they haven't.
Nobody
right?
teaches it. Nobody teaches it.
Exactly.
Even in middle school, I mean, it should start
It's
young,
ridiculous, right, in that regard. So we're big fans of parents that are caring enough about this because I think we all would agree if our parents were bad with money, we are probably going to be struggling with money too. So for those that take an interest in their children and their financial well-being, this is a wonderful thing. So I commend any parents that are doing that and trying to help their children get off on a good foot in regards to planning.
Yep.
All right, we got one more scenario. Mark, I'll throw this one at you. Casey, you can jump in. Annuities, a very, very hot topic right now. My current advisor is not about annuities at all. Why the contradiction?
Well, we can pretty much say Wall Street in a big one letter, two words, right? They don't understand. A lot of advisors they're negative on annuities. They have a bias about them, but boy, has that world changed. All that we want to say in this regard is find out what you want that money to do, and if it means structuring income that you want to have last forever and never run out, I will just say this: annuities are going to create the biggest guaranteed amount of income that you're going to get. And so, but we don't sell annuities here. We don't sell life insurance here. We don't sell long-term care here. What we do is try and solve a problem. And that's what we do when we find out what a client needs. There's vehicles and tools that are going to, fix the problem. And that annuities are great if you want income. Now, if we want long-term growth, we're going to go into the red bucket. We're going to put money in the market. So again, all I can say about annuities, they have a wonderful place when it comes to income. And right now, the rates on annuities are as good as I've ever seen them in 40 years. So we're big believers in using annuities if we want income.
Yeah, and it really all comes down to if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And so we see a lot of other advisors that they only have one tool in the tool belt, and that's the market, right? And if that's all you got, then that's what you got to use, right? And so we have broadened that. We use anything and everything that is going to be beneficial to our clients, and we're agnostic when it comes to the investment. So.
Opportunity right now. Mark, you've got the offer. Again, this is an opportunity to come into the office complimentary.
Yeah, please keep your checkbook at home. Give us a call. Just come in and have a conversation with us. We could talk about risk. How's your portfolio set up? What if we do have a big downturn? What are you going to do? What about your income? Is it going to be guaranteed? How are you going to deal with inflation? All of these things, including long-term care planning, legacy planning, all of these things that we can help our clients have their retirement not be a fairy tale. That's what we don't want to have happen. So please pick up the phone, call us, and then what we're going to do is let our team of certified financial planners put together a plan for you, and then let's just have a conversation. That's what this is all about.
Here's the phone number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you, and this is complimentary. You leave the checkbook at home, you're going to walk out with a written financial plan. Call now, 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark and Casey, I'm Morgan. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.